A crow circles above the frost-bitten field, its shadow slicing the snow like a blade drawn across memory. Beneath its orbit, a girl kneels, her breath curling like spirit smoke into the iron air. Her hands, wrapped in fraying linen, tremble as they dip into a brook more ice than water. Each scoop drips from her palms like glass tears too cold to swallow, too vital to waste. The world no longer breathes. The trees, once alive with whispering winds and gossiping branches, now groan only under the heavy hush of silence. The sun, when it dares to rise, casts no warmth, only the pale light of a forgotten god. Fields lie in shroud-white slumber, wheat buried beneath months of dead frost, roots snapped by the cold. Not even the crows caw anymore. They watch. Within the ruins of a hamlet blackened by fire, a barn still stands, its ribs scorched, its roof stitched with ash and frost. Inside, the last of the village cluster like dying embers, barely human in the cold. Smoke no longer curls from the hearth. It has given its final breath, leaving only soot and the faint memory of warmth. A boy, cough sweat, red, final. No one turns to look. They've heard the sound too often now. They pray, but the names they call are old one, saints long struck from the pages of the church, their statues buried, their miracles unspoken. Ribbons of prayer hang limp from the rafters, gray with smoke, once bright as children's laughter. The air tastes of fur, of skin, of the last rat skinned and shared 4 nights ago. Even hunger has turned quiet, now only shame remains. Then the crone speaks. Her rosary is worn to the smoothness of river stones, her voice a rasp like parchment set aflame. She tells of a shrine, a forgotten place, deep in the forest, where a bitter root is said to grow beneath crumbled altars and broken angels. The monks who once guarded it dead, taken by the black snow, but the root remains, she says, not holy, not sweet, but enough. Eyes flicker toward the door. At dawn, 3 rise. 1 man, bent from the mines, 1 girl, no older than 12, with frostbite on 3 fingers, and 1 youth, who has not spoken since his brother drowned in the well last spring. They carry dull knives, burlap sacks, and the eyes of the desperate. The barn door opens with a sound like bone cracking. Snow rushes in, swirling around their feet, eager to pull them under. The others do not wave, do not cry. They watch each face a different fear carved in flesh. Wolves, frost, demons, or worse, the shame of returning with nothing. The snow absorbs their footprints almost instantly, as if the world itself refuses to remember them. Trees bend toward them like mourners at a burial, and yet they go, because even now, even here, hope flares like a candle in the wind, flickering, foolish, but lit. The forest meets them like a trial. Every branch is a finger pointing, every gust a warning. The man leads, his hand on the hilt of a knife that couldn't gut a rabbit. The girl walks beside him, her breath wheezing in tiny clouds. The silent youth follows last, his eyes hollow but sharp, as though he sees ghosts between the trunks. The shrine is 2 days' walk, if the path still lives. They do not speak. Their feet crunch over bones of animals they do not name. Once, they find a stag antlers tangled in a tree, its eyes frozen mid-prayer. The girl touches its hide. It cracks like old leather. That night, they shelter beneath a ruined hunter's lodge. The roof is gone, but the walls still whisper. The man sets a trap with the last of their twine. The girl sleeps with her hands beneath her armpits, trying to remember the warmth of her mother's lap. The youth does not sleep. His eyes remain open, watching snowflakes vanish as they land on his lashes. He dreams of fire, of monks screaming in black robes, of a book flung into snow, its pages eaten by frost. At dawn, the trap is empty. They walk. The trees grow denser, the air thinner. Once they find the tracks of something large clawed, deliberate, circling. The man tightens his grip on the knife. They move faster. By mid-afternoon, the trees part like curtains to reveal the shrine. It is no longer a house of God. The roof has collapsed inward. Statues lie decapitated. The altar is cracked, slick with frost. But beneath the altar, the root, it coils like a serpent, black-veined, thick, pulsing faintly with heat that should not be there. The man hacks at it, grunting, coughing blood into the snow. The youth kneels beside him, silent, eyes watching the shadows in the corners. The girl begins to pray, not to saints, not to gods, but to the wind, to the smoke, to the brother she never met. She asks the root to forgive them. They dig, sacks fill slowly. The root bleeds sap the color of rust. The man licks a bit, gags, nods it will keep them alive. But the wind shifts, the snow begins to fall again, heavier now, and from the forest, the sound of bells, not church bells, not wedding bells, warning bells. The youth stands, suddenly alert. The man grabs the girl's arm. Run. They do not question. Behind them, the forest groans. Something moves, not beast, not man. It smells of incense and rot. It walks without footsteps. The shrine vanishes behind them in the blizzard. Their footprints, again, disappear. But they do not stop. By dusk, the girl collapses. The man lifts her. His knees tremble. The youth stays ahead, guiding, silent. One night, one fireless sleep. One prayer muttered into cupped hands. By morning, the barn reappears. Smoke curls from its chimney. Smoke. They do not speak. They run. Inside, the crone waits. She holds the rosary. Her eyes glisten not with joy, but recognition. They made it. They lived. They bring root. They bring hope. But something else has followed them. The man stares at the fire. His lips move. I heard them, chanting. The girl sits, her fingers blackened. She grips the sack. The youth stares into the flames. A wind howls against the barn wall. Not natural. Not wind. The root pulses faintly in the sack. And outside, the snow begins to fall black again. Not ash, not soot, snow. The crone closes her eyes. It has begun again, she whispers, and the chapter ends not with a scream or silence, but with the faint sound of chanting, carried on wind that should not speak. The snow fell in silence, but it screamed through the bones. White swallowed the world in layers, thick as sleep, deep as forgetting. In the shadow of a ruined village, time had slowed into stillness, and stillness had turned into death. A mother sat beneath what once was a doorframe, her body wrapped in rags and prayer. Her child slept in the cradle of her arms, lips the color of crushed plums, breath shallow as candle smoke. No sound passed between them. Words had long since become luxuries burned away. Like the last of the firewood, she broke apart the chair slowly, reverently, as if dismantling a memory. Each crack of old wood echoed like a scream in a chapel. She did not cry. She had no water left for tears. There were no flames in the hearths. No footprints marked the path. The village, what remained of it, had become a sculpture of the damned, carved by hunger, preserved by frost. Cloaks hung stiff on the shoulders of unmoving bodies, eyes half-lidded with ice, mouths parted in silent warnings. From windows, glassless and hollow, the wind spoke riddles. No one could answer. In the center of the village, the granary crouched beneath a blanket of snow, its door splintered, its floor rotting. It was here, among dust and rats and old echoes, that 5 shadows gathered. They were not soldiers, nor saints. Survivors, perhaps, if only barely. Each wore hunger like a second skin, stretched eyes, brittle hair, movements that took thought and calculation. A breath was a decision. The former miller was the oldest among them. His voice, when it came, was the rasp of grainstones long silenced. There is mold, he said, eyes sunken, on the rye. Wet seasons made it bloom, not safe, but slivers we might bear. No one spoke against him. Silence was not only wise, it was tradition now. They moved as one, through the broken arch of the chapel, past stone saints defaced by wind and war, into the hollow that once held harvest blessings. Behind the altar, beneath what was once a golden tapestry, lay the grain sacks, forgotten relics of a feastless time. They were blue now, not with light, nor sky, but with rot. The smell clawed into their nostrils like a memory of disease. It reeked of tombs and basements, and wet skin, but their hands did not tremble. Hunger makes courage of desperation. They took it in handfuls, careful, slow. The mold flaked like ash, clinging to fingers, tongues, lungs. They did not cook it. Fire was precious. They chewed in unison, heads bowed, as if at communion. It was bitter, bitter as regret, sharp as betrayal. It burned its way down like punishment, a penance not for sin, but for survival. One of them, a tall man once known for his voice in the tavern, began to twitch. His eyes rolled, his body spasmed, limbs knocking over a relic of some saint with a shattered face. No one moved, not from cruelty, from necessity. To move was to burn was to hunger. Hunger was death. When his convulsions ceased, a young woman quiet, eyes too old, knelt and closed his lids. She covered his frame with a sackcloth, the same kind that once held bread. Her gloves brushed his cheek once, almost tender. Then she turned away. Outside, the wolves circled like thoughts, black silhouettes against a canvas of white. Their eyes gleamed with the patience of ancient hunger. They did not howl. They watched. They waited. Even the beasts knew winter did not kill quickly. It savored. That night, snow fell again. At first a whisper, then a roar. The roof above them groaned, a sound like grief stretching its spine. One beam cracked, but held. The darkness thickened, not with fear, but with familiarity. They were used to it now. It pressed against them like an old friend, one who never leaves but never comforts. And then from the corner a hum, barely audible, broken and slow, an old harvest song, one sung during shearing season, back when wheat was gold and children ran barefoot through stalks. The voice, frail and cracked, summoned ghosts from the rafters. It sang of sunlight, of bread, of hands held in fields, laughter between barns. Another voice joined, then another, low, hollow, like bells heard under water. It was not harmony, but it was memory, and in memory, there was warmth. They did not sing for joy, there was none. They sang to remember, to stitch their minds together, so they would not unravel in silence. In the rhythm of that broken song, they felt their hearts beat again, faint, but steady, like seeds beneath frost. When the final note faded, no one spoke. The wolves had not moved. Snow covered the window slits. Time had folded in on itself. The mother fed the last of the chair to the fire. Her child stared at the glow. The flicker painted shadows across his cheeks, like war paint. He did not smile, but his hand reached out, slowly, toward the light. And in that moment, that single moment, something ancient stirred. Hope, not loud, not bold, but present. A warmth not of flame, but of future. Outside, the wolves turned and padded away. They had seen this before. Villages that refused to die, despite the logic of winter, despite the weight of frost and famine, despite everything. Dawn came not bright, but real. The snowlight filtered in through the cracks, touching the granary's floor like a blessing remembered. The fire was embers. The mold was gone. They rose, slow as dawn mist, and stepped into the day. The chapel bells had long fallen, shattered among ivy and thyme. But the silence left in their absence felt different now, not empty, expectant. Beyond the forest, where the sun caught the edge of an old Roman road, there were rumors, whispers of a caravan, of grain, of men with coins and cloaks. No one believed in saviors anymore, but they believed in walking, one foot, then another, and so, wrapped in furs, hunger, and memory, they walked, toward the road, toward smoke, if they could find it, toward anything not white and still. And behind them, in the village of snow-carved statues, the wind carried their song into the trees, a broken hymn, fading, but not lost. The cold did not win that morning, but it remembered, and it waited. A broken bell dangles from the collapsed spire, like a severed limb of heaven, rusted, mute, and swaying without wind. It hasn't sung in months, and neither have the birds. Only silence speaks now, thick as frostbite, crawling over the chapel stones like a second skin. The graveyard below is a memory in white snow erasing boundaries, tombs, names, Only iron crosses claw out from the ground like the fingers of forgotten saints, twisted and blackened by time and war. A rotting cart leans into the drift like a dying animal, and beneath it, hunched in its skeletal frame, a circle of children gather around the only voice left that carries more than pain. The blind monk's throat is a dry riverbed. His words crack like ice, but flow all the same tales of citruses, kissed by sun, of bread still warm from flame, of ale that laughs when poured. He speaks of color, of warmth, of things these children have never seen, and perhaps never will, and they believe him, not because they've known those things, but because belief is the only thing not rationed. They sit without speaking. Even the youngest knows sound wastes heat, only their stomachs speak low, gurgling groans that harmonize like a distant choir. Yet none interrupt. The stories are sustenance too, their only feast untouched by blight. Among them, a boy sits slightly apart, eyes sharp, lips sealed by more than silence. His tongue was taken last spring for stealing dried peas from a baron's granary. A message, they said. Though the baron himself never returned from battle, now the boy watches. Every morning, every dusk, his eyes scan the road, the trees, the sky, not for stories, but for hope in motion. Traders, soldiers, even wolves would mean movement, something, but nothing comes. Not for seasons. The war ended for the lords long ago, swallowed by snow and starvation. No crowns remain to claim their taxes, no banners to blind the wind. The villagers do not speak of rescue anymore. Hope, like meat, is portioned carefully. When the hunger clawed too deep, they turned to birds, crows mostly. They trapped them with snares, made from rosary threads and harp strings. Faith and music, torn into wire. The meat is bitter, the bones treacherous, but better a crow than a coffin. The dead are wrapped in wool, what little remains, and buried beneath the chapel altar. They believe, or pretend to, that the saints below will feel them, will speak to the God who's turned away. There is no priest now, only the monk, and he carves their names into broken wood using the ends of his own fingernails. The boards stack like memories no one asked to keep. One night, when the moon hides its face and the snow comes in sideways thick as ash from a funeral pyre, a girl named Linnet finds something. Her fingers, already gray at the tips, are digging for kindling among the frozen beams of a fallen rook's perch. And there, nestled in the black sticks and feathers, is a single egg, round, pale, uncracked. She gasps a sound so small it dies in her scarf. She holds it close, not like food, but like fire. The shell is colder than bone, yet it promises something unspoken, life that still waits. She does not eat it. She wraps it in cloth, presses it to her ribs, and carries it back to the cart. She does not speak. She only shows the monk. His blind eyes widen, as if they can see again. Then he nods, once, and resumes the story mid-breath. But now the orchard is fuller, the bread softer, the sun brighter. The children pass the egg between them, like a holy thing. Each holds it briefly to their chest. It becomes a secret prayer, round and silent. It is not cracked. It is not broken. It is waiting. In the days that follow, a kind of reverence grows. The egg becomes more than a promise. It becomes proof that even among ruin, something can still begin. They build a small nest of rags and twine beside the monk. Each day they check it. Each night, one child volunteers to sleep closest, guarding it from cold and claws. When another child dies, the youngest, barely 3 winters, they still bury him beneath the altar. But this time, the monk says the name out loud 3 times. His voice no longer cracks. They begin marking days by the egg's silence. The mute boy starts leaving small twigs near the rook's perch, in case another might come. Once, he leaves a crow's feather, black and gleaming, like an apology. The monk's stories shift. He tells now of mothers, of nesting birds, of hearths that hum like lullabies. He speaks of beginnings, not endings, of springs that come too late, and still come. No one asks when it will hatch. No one needs to. The point was never in its breaking. It lies in its waiting, in the stillness that somehow refuses despair. One dawn, the wind returns. It comes not with rage, but with breath. It moves through the chapel ruins like a whisper of memory. Snow stirs, the bell trembles, and somewhere beyond the woods, a sound rises faint and uncertain, not hoofbeats, but wheels. The boy is first to hear it. He stands on the chapel steps, bare feet red against the frost, his hand cups his ear. His eyes squint through the gray, then he runs not toward the sound, but back beneath the cart. He grabs the egg, not to flee, not to hide, but to show, to prove to whatever comes next, whether soldier or stranger, thief or savior, that something was kept alive, that even here, in a land of hunger and forgetting, they remembered to protect something small. The monk begins a new story. His voice stronger now, the egg warms in the boy's hands, and far off, the sound draws closer. The wind scrapes across the moors like a hungry animal, howling through hollow branches and broken watchtowers. In the vast dark, where no road dares remain, the sky hangs low with gray, and the bones of the land ache with cold. This is not weather. This is punishment. In a cave carved by time and salt, 6 souls huddle close shadows within a shadow warmed not by fire alone, but by the sheer refusal to die. The fire they keep is weak, built of peat and damp bark, its smoke too thin to betray them. It smells of wet stone and unwashed skin, of fear fermenting in silence. Icicles above weep in slow rhythm, each drop hitting the rock like a ticking clock running out of mercy. They were once peasants tied to fields by rope and oath, kneeling before lords and altars. But oaths rot when famine spreads like plague, and no altar feeds the belly. So they fled, from law, from tithe, from hunger that wore crowns. Now they belong to the wild, to deer paths and ruined roads, ghosts with hollow names. Among them, a girl of 13 cradles a torn page from a saint's codex, its vellum yellowed and soft as dying leaves. She holds it over the firelight, the ink dancing in flickers she cannot read. Latin was never meant for mouths like hers, yet she mouths the lines each night, eyes wide as if praying through a mask. The words are lullabies to no one, forgotten verses, murmured into ash. Beside her, a one-armed man fingers snare wire between calloused hands. A soldier once, now a woodcutter by necessity, he works harp wire and sinew into traps that sing death to squirrel and sparrow. His gaze is fixed, not by hate, but by memory. He has seen blood spill like rain, and now watches each creature die as though reliving his own. The others, a woman whose child starved in her arms. 2 brothers who once carried wheat to market, now thieves of bark and bone, and the old man who says nothing, not since the night his tongue froze and split. They share stories of forbidden apples, of buried cheese, of dreams soaked in butter and hearthlight. Their bellies grumble in answer, but they laugh, laughter that sounds more like weeping's ghost. Then comes the snow, thicker than wool, heavier than sin. It mutes the world until even owls dare not fly. The fire shrinks, their food is gone, bark, moss, bones boiled thrice. They do not say the word starvation, it is already in their eyes. That night, as twilight bleeds into deeper dark, wheels creak on the frost-bitten road beyond the trees. A carriage black as confession stutters and sinks into the snowbank. Horses snort, stamping steam into the still air. The driver curses, thick accent slapping the quiet like a whip. Inside, unseen behind velvet and fur, the nobleman waits, warm, cloaked in meat and silks, oblivious. From the trees, 6 figures rise like moss-covered stones. Mud cloaks them, silence binds them. They do not speak, but their eyes vote. No fire burns behind them, only the dying embers of mercy. The soldier tightens the wire around his wrist. The girl drops her vellum page into the snow. It melts a perfect square, like a missing piece. Later, a scream breaks the winter stillness, brief, muffled. Then only the wind, moving through the trees like a priest pacing before judgment. The horses are gone, the driver lies twisted beneath the wheels, and the nobleman, he is smoke now. Back in the cave, the fire grows strong again. Shadows dance hungrily on the walls. Something sizzles. The smell is sweet, foreign, rich. They eat without words. One chews with closed eyes. Another weeps between bites. The girl does not touch her share, only watches the flames and presses her lips to the ash-smeared codex. Outside, snow falls harder, covering tracks, blood, memory. By morning, the forest is clean, purified by silence. But guilt hangs in the cave like smoke, invisible, inescapable. It clings to skin, seeps into dreams. The old man shivers as if something walks through him. The woman whispers her dead son's name between hiccups. The soldier sharpens his snare wires to razors, though there's nothing left to catch. That night, they sleep not in peace, but in the lull that follows surrender. Their bellies full, their souls quieter, not whole, just quieter. And the girl, she dreams. In her dream, the codex opens to her. The Latin speaks itself. The saints have no faces, only hollow eyes. One reaches out from the parchment and touches her forehead, leaving behind a mark that burns like frost. She wakes with a gasp, and the cave feels smaller, closer, the fire too bright. She doesn't tell the others, but that morning, she climbs from the cave alone, walking through knee-deep snow with the codex tucked to her chest. She moves without a path, drawn by something older than roads. Above her, the moors stretch on endless and white. A church bell rings in the distance, though there is no church, only ruin, only echo. And yet she walks toward it, because somewhere beyond this hunger, beyond this exile, beyond even guilt, something waits, a reckoning, maybe, or a redemption no one asked for. The wind does not stop her, the cold does not bite. Her bare feet bleed, but she walks still. The others sleep, unaware that she is gone. Back in the cave, the fire dims. A codex is missing. The wire traps lie still, and in the smoke, something stirs, not beast, not man, but the weight of choices made. Outside, snow falls in silence, and far ahead, a bell tolls once more, not as warning, but as invitation. The bell lies in pieces, a hollow bronze relic cracked by fire, split by frost, mute now beneath a roof of broken heavens. Where once its voice summoned the faithful, it now whispers only in dreams. Around it, ash settles like gray snow, and soot stains the bones of a church, no longer consecrated, only remembered. They come in silence, these villagers, scarves pulled tight over mouths, eyes alert not for threats, but for memory. Their fingers sift through rubble, as if through ashes of the dead. A glint of metal, not wealth, not salvation, but utility, becomes sacred. A widow's ring pried from stone, a coin pressed into wax by the hands of someone long gone. These, they do not melt down. They set them gently beside the altar, what remains of it. Blackened wood, headless saints. A sanctum stripped bare by both flame and famine. But beneath the pulpit, where once the voice of God thundered, the earth holds secrets still. There, behind a fallen crossbeam, lies a cellar door hidden in shadow, crusted in lichen. It groans as it opens, revealing a stairway that exhales rot and old prayers. The air below tastes of damp stone, mildew, and something sweeter, the ghost of stored grain, long devoured. Each morning, they descend. Their lanterns flicker like dying stars, casting warped halos on walls that once heard confessions. With shovels and bare hands, they dig, layer by layer, past broken crates and shattered jars, past whispers of scarcity, deeper into a faith that once promised plenty, and then bones. Curled in corners, hands clasped in final petitions, monks who sealed themselves in as the first frost kissed the ground, trusting that piety would feed them where bread could not. Dust still clings to their robes, and in one brittle hand, a leather pouch, its contents hardened together, by time and damp into a single sacred stone, communion, wafers. The body of Christ, turned fossil, still, they break it, boil it in rainwater, sip in reverence, they do not speak as they drink. The silence is more devout than any litany. In that silence they remember the old songs not with words, but with breath, the inhale, before a hymn, the exhale of a dying fire, a cadence known only to the starved and the steadfast. Outside, winter limps toward spring, but not gently. The snows retreat into gray sludge, chimneys collapse under their own weight, and in the ruins of what was once a choir loft, a girl feeds the fire with hymnals, psalms curling into ash, lyrics ascending in smoke. She does not cry, she watches the flames with eyes too tired for weeping. Her brother, younger by a few winters, crouches in the shadows. He scatters crumbs not for mercy, but for bait. Pigeons gather in trust, and he snatches one in silence. It flutters once, then nothing. On feast days they pretend, a thimble of boiled bark becomes chalice. The pigeon's meager flesh, anointed and split, becomes lamb in the eyes of the faithful. They sit in a circle, bones sharpened by hunger, and speak no blessings, only chew in rhythm, as if the ritual itself is enough to keep the world from ending. They do not say his name, not from abandonment, but awe, as if each syllable is too heavy to carry, too holy to soil with starving tongues. Their silence is its own cathedral. At twilight, they walk. No songs, only torchlight and the crunch of frost beneath worn boots. They move toward the old well where the earth once gave water without cost. Now, they bring offerings, scraps of cloth, once ribbons of joy soaked in blood, wrapped around twigs, whispered over like relics. They drop them into the darkness. The bucket descends, the rope moans, and when it rises, empty, no one mourns. They smile, because the act is enough. The motion of belief, the rhythm of remembrance. In offering, they reclaim something the frost could not steal, not bread, but identity, not warmth, but meaning. One elder, her face as creased as the pages she once read aloud from, stands by the rim of the well long after the others turn back. Her eyes, milky with age, see something in the dark, or pretend to. She whispers, not a name, not a plea, but a story. Of a time when bells rang at dawn, and cloaks were red with velvet, not blood, of children who learned by candlelight. Not because they had no other option, but because the night was gentle, of a priest who taught not fear, but mercy. Of grain stored deep enough to last through all winters. The wind answers with a moan. Behind her, the sky bruises purple. The last light touches the shattered steeple, and turns it gold for a breath, a final benediction. She turns, steps over broken pews, past the bell's fractured mouth, and back into the hush of the dying day. Tonight, the fire will burn from psalms once sung at weddings. Tonight, the broth will taste faintly of rain and regret. Tonight, they will remember. They were never beasts, not holy. They once knelt in pews, not dirt. They once kissed rings not out of hunger, but love. They once prayed not for survival, but for forgiveness. And though the world is now reduced to bones and bark and silence still, they walk to the well, still, they lower the rope, still, they smile, and in that smile, a defiance quiet but enduring. Winter, seeing this, begins to loosen its grip. Not all at once, not with mercy, but with the reluctant awe owed to a people who will not be unmade. Not yet. A wolf howls, once a raw note cleaving the silence like a knife through wet cloth. Snow hushes the trees, thick as ash. The salt roads lie quiet, no longer singing with trade or hoofbeats. Only the wind walks them now, and a boy. His feet are bare, crusted with ice and old wounds. Each step sounds like a secret he's forced to carry. Behind him drags a cart, its wheels replaced by lashed wood and bone, its frame a crooked tribute to survival. Ropes dig into his palms, and the load it bears creaks with life and near death. Bundles of bark bread, cloth sacks of salted rats, and beneath them, the shape of a woman coughing behind sackcloth. His mother, her ribs rise like cathedral arches, sharp, holy, and almost gone. When she coughs, it's like prayers whispered too fast, too late. They've been walking for days, weeks, years maybe. Time is something only the dying track. From village to village they move not as guests, but as warnings. They carry potions made of boiled moss and soot ink, traded for cracked barley or pig fat, scraped from an old pan. The folk who answer their knocks do so with blades in hand, faces gaunt with distrust. Once, a child offered them a frozen apple. Once, a dog growled until it fell over, too starved to bite. But tonight, even dogs do not bark. They stop beside a ruin, the bones of a tavern. Once laughter and ale lived here, now only soot stains and broken beams. He breaks what's left of a fence for firewood. Flames stutter, catching on splinters. Around them, shadows rise like ghosts unburied. They sing then or try to. Half-remembered songs, notes missing like teeth. His mother's voice cracks, his is too soft, but they sing, because silence is worse. From the dark, a shape, he stands. Wrapped in linen, the man seems more cloth than flesh. Frostbite has claimed his hands. They bulge like rotted fruit. His eyes burn, fevered. He does not beg, nor threaten. He offers a secret. In the marshlands, he rasps, voice like stone dragged over bone. There grows a thing white, beneath the snow, not root, not beast. Mushrooms. Some kill, some heal. Find them, if you dare. The man leaves before the fire dies. The boy does not sleep. His mother wheezes behind the curtain of sackcloth, lips pale, skin waxen. He watches her, and he decides. When the moon is high, silver and cruel, he wraps his feet and walks. Through the trees he goes, where reeds crackle beneath frost and air hangs still, like breath held too long. Hours pass, or maybe lifetimes. Then the grove, it lies beneath snow, hidden like a wound. He kneels, brushes back ice, and there, glowing faintly, the mushrooms. They do not shimmer like magic. No, they burn, dim and red, like coals sunk into dead flesh. He does not know if they are poison or promise. But he gathers them, wraps them in cloth, and turns back. The return is agony. His breath shortens, his blood sings with cold, feet split open, but he carries them, carries hope. By dawn he collapses beside the fire. His mother stirs, her eyes widen, seeing the boy, the cloth in his hands. She does not ask. She knows. They boil the mushrooms in silence. The broth turns a pale gray, a color of bone and fog. She eats first. He watches. Every heartbeat he counts. Every breath he weighs. Then he drinks. The night does not end them. In the morning, the boy stands. His mother stands. Neither speaks, for speaking might break whatever spell held the death at bay. They pack what little remains. Salted rat, bit of bread, a pouch of mushrooms, wrapped like relics. The cart creaks. The rope bites into his skin again. But now, her hand clasps his, tight, alive. They walk. Behind them, snow begins to fall, not in sharp, cruel sheets, but soft, like ash, from a gentler fire. It gathers in their footsteps, then erases them, as if the road wants to forget it ever carried suffering, as if mercy has memory, and somewhere, far off, perhaps behind another ruin or grove, another mother coughs, another child watches, another miracle waits, neither cruel nor kind, simply waiting. A rusted censer swings from a shepherd's crook. It moves not by hand, but by the will of a wind that has forgotten warmth. Smoke coils from its mouth, like the last breath of something sacred. Curls of sage, bitter and blue, masking the stench of rot that clings to every stone in Brindlow. Fish guts, boiled leather, the perfume of desperation. The sea stands still, not calm still, frozen in violent shapes, as if the ocean tried to scream and was silenced mid-cry. Glass waves crash but never fall. Boats lean helplessly in their icy tombs, sails stiff like flags on forgotten graves. Nets hang limp from their riggings, heavy, not with catch, but with the absence of life, salt, frost, and silence woven together. Above this glass graveyard, A watchtower leans like a tired sentinel. Inside, the people have gathered not to defend, not to plan, only to survive. They have become a commune of bones and whispers. Their leader, once the quiet wife of an apothecary, is now their guide through this famine of flesh and hope. Her name was lost somewhere between plague boils and nettle paste, between funerals and seaweed stew. Now she is simply mother to those who tremble before her soot-stained hands. She stirs a pot with a carved femur, boiling ash into seaweed to smother hunger's howl. The broth is gray. So are their eyes. Children chew candle wax in the dark. Their teeth leave trails through softened tallow, as if gnawing at ghosts. They speak in low tones about Merelda, the sea goddess, once worshipped in tide and moon, long ago exiled by the iron-crossed church. They whisper her name like a spell, like a sin, like a sin. One night, with bellies singing their slow death, the children begin again what the elders abandoned. They slice fish bones into runes, each mark an aching prayer. Tiny fingers, trembling but determined, carry the talismans to the edge of the ice. They whisper invocations as they slip them into the tide cracks, where dark water breathes beneath glass. The ocean does not reply. Not then, but in the black hours before dawn, the sea moans. It is a groan that wakes the village, ancient and aching. The ice shifts, sighs, parts, and from it, the carcass of a whale rises like a prophecy, massive, lifeless. Its eyes are frozen pearls, clouded and wide. Its flanks are wounded, as if flayed by gods or storms. The villagers fall to their knees. Some pray, some scream, some laugh, mad with hunger and fear. They descend upon the creature with kitchen knives and rusty shears. Mothers cry as they cut. Fathers weep as they feast. The fat melts on their tongues like mercy. The meat is sweet with salt and rot. And when a young boy climbs into the ribs and declares it a cathedral, no one argues. His voice echoes through the hollow bones, high and shaking, but sure. This is Merelda's temple, he says, arms raised to the blood-stained sky, and they believe him. Fires bloom inside the whale, licking the curved ceilings like incense smoke. They roast liver and boil marrow. They render tallow and smear it on wounds. The cold retreats for a while. The hunger loosens its grip, but the gift has a price. As the days pass, the meat sours, the bones groan. Fever stalks the children like a shadow with teeth. The apothecary's wife, their mother, works by firelight. She brews tinctures from bile, poultices from the inner fats. She sings to herself an old hymn, once used to lull plague patients into sleep. Some recover, some do not. A child dies with whale grease on his lips, another with sea runes clutched in his hand. But none are buried. Instead, they are laid inside the whale's ribs, wrapped in salt cloth, cradled by cold meat. Their souls, it is said, rise in steam through the broken blowhole and into the breath of Merelda. The carcass settles deeper into the sand with each nightfall. Snow gathers on its back like mourning veils. Ice wreathes its jaw. It is temple, tomb, womb of the desperate. They do not leave it. They live within it. They dream beneath whale ribs, beside flickering flames. And every dusk, as the sky bruises, they ring bells made from jawbones, soft, hollow sounds that tremble through the fog. Not in celebration, not in worship, but in thanks, for breath, for another hour, with fire and salt. For the grace of marrow. No one speaks of the church now. The rusted crosses have been taken down. In their place hang charms of fishbone and kelp, whale teeth tied with children's hair. Merelda, it seems, has returned not with salvation, but with sustenance. She is neither kind nor cruel. She simply is. The boy who named the whale a cathedral now sleeps inside its skull. He calls it the head of the goddess. When he speaks, others listen. And mother watches him the way he walks with no fear, how he smiles even in fever light. She wonders if the sea chose him. If Merelda answers not to age or power, but to purity of desperation. Snow falls again, it coats the world in silence. Even the bones seem to hush. and in the distance, across the frozen tide, a shape stirs on the horizon, not of man, not of beast. A shape walking where no path should be, wrapped in cloaks of frost, dragging behind it something heavy, something bound in chains of smoke and shadow. Mother steps to the edge of the watchtower. She watches without blinking, and the bells ring softly behind her, echoing through the whalebone halls. The chapter ends not with a feast, nor a death, but with the sound of footfall on frozen sea, and a whisper rising in the boy's throat, as he stares toward the dark figure. She comes.